thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Little love fest going on.
Is it love?
Yeah.
I thought it was until that face. The baby chick trying to be fed.
You have somebody. Why are you doing that? You have Kara.
You know what this show hasn't had is a menage a trois.
I didn't know we were going to that in season 2.
Let's do it.
Well, I guess that's the way to procreate. That's the manipulation.
Procreate. I will procreate.
Good stuff. I want to tell some stuff.
Well, I guess you are trying to get in with Granderson here because her mom is trying to take over the world.
You want to get in with the big guns?
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with your genes.
It's not me, I swear.
So at the end of season 1, we obviously met Alfred Woodard's character, your mom, Granderson's mom. So she takes over the new U.S. Nathan James, and everything is just chaotic. And we heard from Hank Steinberg that we're picking up exactly where we left off.
Seconds later.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about what we're going to see with your characters in the first episode? We obviously know you're going to be a father. Are we going to see any expansion on anything like that in the first episode, or is that going to come down later down the pike?
You know, I think you're going to see it in the first episode. I think you're going to see it in a lot of the episodes. You can't just forget or erase a baby that's alive. So that's a big factor in my life and in Kara's life, and it's something that I'm willing to fight for to any end. And Kara's on the ship, so the baby's on the ship. So we will do whatever it takes to get back our ship.
And then, of course, you have the confrontation with your mom.
And I think I sort of make it clear, this isn't happening, Mother.
Like,
and as much as I love you, mission comes first.
Yeah.
The cause comes first. And so there's some conflict there, clearly, because she thinks she's, I'm her daughter. She can handle me. If anything, I'm her way in. But it's not going to go down that easy.
And what we're going to see with Burke?
Yeah, where we left off, the captain and I and his family were away from the ship, and we didn't have contact. And so now it's the whole trying to figure out how we can get back into contact with the ship. Is the ship okay? And just devise some sort of scheme to get the ship back without having the contact. So that's the big challenge. I love that. I love that. I feel like the writers probably sometimes write themselves into a corner and don't even know how to get out of it, and then boom, they figure it out. It's awesome.
I think when they do that, it really adds more tension.
And
I
actually stole that quote from David Mann. he does it on purpose. He encourages his writers to do that on purpose.
Well, you didn't do air quotes or anything.
I did.
He gave the credit.
Well, it's audio here. They didn't know that.
Yeah. We'll air quote you in later.
Air quotes are felt in audio.
Since Alicia was originally put on the boat anyway, on purpose, to help. So, when we see that inevitable conflict with her mother, do you see Alicia maybe understanding her mother more at some point, or?
I think what's great about our writers in our show is that there's no one who's just pure evil and totally bad, and therefore they're the bad guy, we're going to fight him. Everyone's complicated, everyone's nuanced. It's really well written in that way. So my relationship with my mom is not just, realize your evil warlord, I'm going back on the ship, we're done. There's some complication there, and there's some family discussions to be had, but there's also discussions with my crewmates and the shipmates and the people who are on board with this cause. So it's going to get a little more complicated than just black and white.
Well, dysfunction is a part of life. It's just how do you deal with it.
Well, and it's tougher in this environment anyway, because post-apocalyptic, essentially, it's like family has to matter because there's not that many.
There's really not much else to hold on to.
Exactly, and yet you have to think of the future and what's right and the proper order. So it's a bigger conflict, definitely.
Well, we venture into that as well. Going back into America, the season is a lot about American soil and what do we do with the people here and how do we cure them. And a lot of the storylines happen with where are our families? Are they alive? Are they dead? How do we find them? Who gets to find them first? We have 210 soldiers on our ship. So it's a lot of the season deals with those emotional strings of where is our family and what can we do to help them if they're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
We get to know characters and their backgrounds a little better this season.
Absolutely.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to season 2.
Yay.
Did everyone else do that?
No.
Oh.
Well, we heard Dr. Scott's having triplets with Tex. So
Well, then all the spoilers are out.
yeah, that's it. You know,
Yeah.
so I guess that's it.
You know, season 1 was about finding the cure and bringing it home. And season 2, in a broad sense, is about home, about America. And what does it look like, you know, in lawlessness or chaos or government? And we kind of harken back to another era in our history when America was fractured, the Civil War. As the ship heads south and goes inland and does other adventures, you sort of see another reconstruction that needs to happen. And America itself is represented by our ship and our sailors, and the cure is, you know, okay, how do I get this cure out there? But that's really phase 1, which is also hard. Manufacture it, mass produce it, distribute it, get it out there to where people need it, communicate the message that it's out there. And then also give people hope in a sense of like all is not lost, and we can still rebuild and recreate what we had before. But then it's you know, who's left of our families? Do we continue on the mission, or do we find our families and leave the ship? You know, these guys signed up for a mission to the Arctic. They didn't sign up for saving the world. So, and then new enemies come in. So it's a lot of adventure, a lot of excitement. The same thing you had last season in terms of the ship and sort of the action element, but much more personal too because they're in their home turf now.
How different is it writing, knowing now that they can be on the ship, but they're not only contained there, that they can go on land?
Well, on a fundamental level, you know, it's the last ship, so we want to be a ship story, a sea story. But also, the benefit is they don't have to wear the suits anymore, and so they can do missions on land, and they do. We spent a lot of time off the ship this season as well as on the ship. But the ship gives you also a lot of mobility. You can go anywhere when you want to, and you have a helicopter as well. So it actually just freed us up to know that we could go and be sort of virus-proof, but also stick to the ship because that's really the safest place for us right now.
If we can get the ship back. Hint, hint.
Right, well, you're going to see a few clips later on today, if you guys are in the big room, that give you a little taste of what happens in the first few episodes as we try to figure out how to get out of the pickle that we're in. What's really cool is you have the captain and some people over here, Rachel and Alicia over here with her mom trapped, the ship taken over, Tex out in the wind, and, you know, how do they all come back together? And what's interesting is how they communicate with each other without speaking, almost telepathically. So Chandler says, you know, if we make this move, the bad guys will make this move. Moving assets from these guys, that'll give the guys in the ship more freedom to operate over there, or maybe help them. On the ship, they say, I know the ship better than these guys do. So you see, by the way, top-down and bottom-up leadership. You see, you know, a third-class petty officer making a decision that can save the ship, not just the XO making the decision, which is really cool. So they make that call. They say, if I do this to the engine room, they'll have to send bad guys to that way. We can get these guys to this room. We can get our guns. You know, so there's a lot of fun sort of strategizing going on, both within each story and then in between. So it's a lot of fun.
Popular media, television shows, films, etc., tend to reflect the collective anxiety, unconscious or whether displayed. Do you think your show does that as a reflection of current anxieties going on right now?
Well, I can't speak to the way people read it. And you're right, a lot of it is unconscious. I think when we were originally devising the idea, it was probably a lot on my mind about, you know, viruses and the new world and, you know, how they spread so quickly and the climate changing the way the biosphere works and all that stuff. And so then you see, of course, in real life with the MERS virus and then, of course, Ebola, you're seeing people reacting with great heroism, great cowardice, panic, fear, love, betrayal. So that kind of made us feel like, well, I guess we're on the right track.
Yes.
You know, but I would say that, you know, during the Red Scare, a lot of alien movies came in.
Yes.
To fill in for our fear of the unknown, of the Soviet menace. There's a lot of apocalyptic stories now because I think the news tells us the world is crazy. So I guess my own neuroses and Hank's, you know, came onto the screen. But hopefully it's also entertaining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.